I don't know if we can talk about this, but like some of our clients had like big DDoS attacks, right? Their website was targeted.
Today we're talking about WordPress security.
Ooh, what do you want to know, Stefan?
I have this question, Dominic, for you.
Yes.
Is WordPress secure? This is one of those questions I always get, or used to get, right, from people who did not work with WordPress yet. And how do you answer that question?
Is your house secure, Stefan?
Depends if I lock it, I guess it's kind of secure. If my doors are kind of thick, it's kind of secure.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
I guess like the thing is like it depends. Everything can be made secure and everything can be made vulnerable, right? So it depends on what you do to your WordPress hosting environment or your WordPress app, if your site will end up being secure or not. And I mean, one of the things about WordPress that has actually been some sort of an issue, or why it always people always say WordPress is so insecure. I mean, more than 40% of the web are WordPress, right? So it's like really, really attractive for people to find a hack in WordPress that they can exploit on multiple websites without like changing anything, right? And that is like the biggest issue. Like there are like whenever a vulnerability is found, of course, like 40% of the web almost get like are affected by that. And I mean, a lot of the times, these vulnerabilities, they can only be exploited if you haven't taken any other security measures. So yeah, it's while this counts for like every other system that you develop or for every other website that you have online, you shouldn't do like or make maybe rookie mistakes or something like that that will make your website more vulnerable to attacks.
Yeah. So it sounds like the easy answer is, well, every website can be secure and can be insecure. It depends on how you do it and how well you do it. And WordPress is just like getting hacked more because it powers like more than 40% of the entire internet. And there is no other piece of software coming close to that in terms of CMS systems. Yeah. Not even, I think, in the 2-digit area. I think the next one is in the 1-digit area of share. But I feel like many people aren't satisfied with this answer. And there might be more reasons why other people consider WordPress as being insecure. What are the reasons might there be? Anything else coming to your mind?
WordPress has a really big plugin ecosystem and like theme ecosystem. So that means plugins or themes are mostly like developed by third parties, like non-WordPress core contributors or something like that. And of course, there are good, bad, and ugly plugins or code where vulnerabilities can come in through these plugins. And while there is like a review process that WordPress actually has set up, of course, like it's really hard to do a perfect like review in terms of security just by analyzing the code or testing the code.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's another reason. I think like there has also been a lot of improvements in that, like in the whole review process in the last years, and especially recently, we've heard of a lot of plugins that were approached by WordPress saying, yeah, if you don't fix your security vulnerabilities, then we might need to take the plugin that you offer out of the public repo. So, which is actually a nice move, right?
Yeah.
And I also heard that a lot of like vulnerabilities.
Depends on which site you are, like.
Yeah, but a lot of vulnerabilities come from unmaintained plugins. So where also the maintainer, like the official maintainer of a plugin, is actually not reachable at all, right? So imagine that like you are working on WordPress, you create a plugin, you put it online, and then, I don't know, you change jobs, you do something else, you don't work in PHP anymore. Maybe you change your email address and even like lose your the login credentials to WordPress. I mean, what then, right? And then it comes down to, again, like, what plugins do you use? I know that we have a pretty like rigid set of guidelines of what kind of plugin we use and when we custom code and so on. Not rigid, but like strict, and that's the word. And yeah, but sometimes, like, if you just go into open WordPress, open the plugins tab, and then search for something that you're interested in, then this is usually already starts you on the road to vulnerability.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. There are just like plugins on it. Just it's not specifically just any specific plugin, but usually WordPress is very well maintained as an open source system and gets a lot of security updates continuously, right? And since WordPress does also support automatic updates, you should not have to take too much care of your WordPress website or the system to keep that secure with having auto updates turned on. However, yeah, the plugins, how do they get security updates? And that has been like one of the bigger issues in the past years, that you got hacked because there was a security issue in one of your plugins. Wasn't it like that the Panama Papers or something like that were also exposed due to someone being able to hack into their server because it was like a WordPress website and it was using a slider with the vulnerability, and they could hack onto the server and then get into their system or something like that? I think I just briefly overheard this story somewhere. I should probably do some research on this. But that was very interesting, that how far things can go, right? And what WordPress just like did is, yeah, they're scanning plugins just more like for security issues.
Yeah.
And if not, they take them down. But will that also disable the plugin in your own backend? Or is it just that it can't be installed on new websites, right?
Yeah, I think
it wouldn't have any effect on your website. So you still need to be aware and maintain that and check if the plugins you have installed are being maintained.
Yeah. I think there are also some like services that will like analyze your or like that they will update you about vulnerabilities in the plugins that you're using. So this is always like something good to have in mind, and also something good to use. I mean, also you have to take into consideration, because there are so many people who are interested in hacking WordPress. There are now also like a lot of people interested in securing WordPress, right? So the research, the white hat hacking, if you want, like people looking for vulnerabilities that will disclose them non-publicly to WordPress or Automatic. The number for of these people also have like increased a lot, I guess, recently. So yeah, that's like one thing that I think, being mindful of the plugins you use. And this is, I mean, that's the same is true for like performance and like other reasons. But being mindful of the plugins you use, regularly updating them, and that's that for me. That's like the check. So that's that problem is solved, or at least taken care of, and and you shouldn't need to worry too much about that. Yeah, but then you also have to think about, okay, what are the, like, why do, how do websites get hacked, right? And while, of course, from a developer point of view, it's like, okay, vulnerabilities in the system, in the app, in like the operating system, or things like that are, of course, one thing that can be automatically exploited if there is something like that. But on the other hand, I guess most of the time it's like brute forcing passwords or like social engineering passwords. If you have like a WordPress website with sensitive data in it, that is interesting for other people or companies, then you might be targeted by social engineers that try to get your password and then log into your backend. And with that, like, there is nothing you can technically, well, apart from like multi-factor authentication and things like that. But besides that, you can take so many, like as many precautions or like extra special measures to secure your website. If a password gets either guessed or leaked or whatever, then anyone can get in, right? And everything's possible. So this is always something that people forget, because I think with a clientele that is not so used to being like really securing things, or that also prefer usability maybe a bit more than security, this is something that is usually like the most common cause for hacks. Right?
Right. Yeah, so use secure passwords, like just like the general usual tips, right? Don't use something that of course is easy to guess, but I would just hopefully assume that most of our listeners have that covered and use a password manager or something like that. And beyond that, I think also the most important thing is like keeping your plugins up to date, ensuring they're maintained, and have a good selection of plugins. For example, we at Bleach, we keep a plugin whitelist of plugins that we trust, just to be sure that we prefer those in the development process. So whenever someone comes up with, hey, this looks to be a very nice plugin, can we just use those? Then it's like, let's stick first to our plugin whitelist, and if we want to use something else, we need to elaborate on that and do a little bit of research, how well it's maintained, who developed that, if there's any data going somewhere, and so on. Right. On top of that, like, I think the infrastructure still is important in terms of hosting, right? That in the best case scenario, your hoster either does have some kind of firewall or any kind of configuration measures that ensure that certain requests get blocked. What was that method that you talked just yesterday about?
I mean, fail to ban?
Yeah, fail to ban.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot you can do with like blocking people from your site, right? So you can have a sophisticated web application firewall, even inside of WordPress as a WordPress plugin, or managed by Cloudflare or something like that. You can limit the login attempts, or the number of login attempts, and we've seen like really a lot of success with that before as well, right? Where like this is brute forcing, right? So guessing a password using like or maybe even passwords got leaked and you have an email address with passwords they use and so on. And if you, for example, enter 4 or 5 different wrong passwords within a given amount of time, then your IP address will be blocked. Like this is like limiting the limiting this. I mean, two-factor authentication is usually like the most secure way, or using an SSO provider with like Google, for example, or any Active Directory or something like that. But then there's also like, if you install something in WordPress that manages these kind of things, usually you only have control over the application layer, right? So your WordPress application can block an IP from logging in. But this, of course, doesn't prevent this IP of like doing a DOS attack, like a denial of service attack, where they make so many requests that your server goes down, right?
Yeah.
And for that, you need the infrastructure, and there's where, like, for example, fail to ban can come in, where they might be blocked also on a network level, like way earlier, like before they even hit the server. So there are a lot of things that that can be done in detail, and it's always good to have somebody at your side who can like consult you on these kind of things and find like the best approach for your specific scenario, right?
Exactly. And there are additional measures, like you can also save, like put the backend behind basic auth and stuff like that, or separate that WordPress backend entirely from the public and just like render statically generated sites in the front end and so on. But these are mostly like things that are requested by IT departments of very large corporations to us. And they always tend to say, these are all the WordPress best practices, like basically best practices, like not expose WordPress to the public, but just make sure that no one can access it. And then sometimes they even want the backend to be only accessible from within the company network, the VPN and stuff like that. I understand where that's coming from. I'm not trying to make fun of that. It's just like saying this is the only way how your WordPress website doesn't get hacked isn't just not true. At least not according to our experience. And it does not take a lot to make your WordPress website secure, actually. It's more about choosing a good hoster that has some basic measures, ensuring that your WordPress website is up to date, either automatically or like in a weekly schedule, and you check against the updates like we do with our support team. Ensuring that you have a great selection of plugins that are well maintained and keeping them up to date as well. Choosing great passwords. And for me, that's the basic, and where we have a very good year-long track record of websites not getting hacked with these very basic measures.
Yes. Yeah, and I also feel like these companies that want to keep everything in-house and do that, a lot of the times, these are the ones where the servers will end up having out-of-date software, right? So out-of-date PHP, out-of-date MySQL, out-of-date Apache, and so on, where there can also be security vulnerabilities, right? And like this is why usually when I talk to clients and it's about like where to host things, I most of the time advise against, even if they have a big IT infrastructure and if they serve apps or stuff like that from inside of their network, I most of the time still advise to find a WordPress host or a PHP host that is external and that will take care of everything for them, right? So also in terms of like, does the WordPress website actually need to talk to internal systems? If that is not the case, then I don't see a reason why you would want your WordPress instance inside of your IT infrastructure, except for saving a couple of bucks. But like this is like the usually not a good good argument. And because the moment that you open up port 443 to the public, you have one more point of attack. I don't know if we can talk about this. I think we can, but like some of our clients had like big DDoS attacks, right? And their website was targeted. And the nice thing was we convinced them, although they have a worldwide reaching IT infrastructure, right? We convinced them to host their website somewhere else. And when the DDoS attack hit, none of their production or productive systems were actually affected by that.
Right.
Sometimes like these DDoS attacks go further, right? So then the attacker will have multiple IP addresses. So for like the website and also like in other systems. but usually the website is like the most prominent one, the one that you can get most easily. And if that kills like your internet connection at your headquarter, well, then things went wrong, right? And yeah.
Exactly. Sometimes, like you hear from that about that from the news, right? That a company got a DDoS attack towards their website, or the website got hacked somehow, and somehow this affects all their IT systems. And or as a pre-measure, the company shuts down access to all kinds of IT, and then people cannot work because there's an attack going on, and so on. Everything's shut down. Yeah, if you and that's just like a benefit of having that website on a different IT infrastructure. So it's not directly related, absolutely. Like just a good concept in terms of keeping things separate. And during that DDoS attack test, I think in the end the website wasn't hacked, but it was just like that the website was struggling to keep online, right? To keep live, and we had to involve with that. But still, this is one of the very rare things that happens. This was also because it's like a very large international company. But most of the hacks that people know from WordPress also are, I'd call them random hacks, like where some bots try to exploit very well-known vulnerabilities of sites. And this is what I think where, again, WordPress is doing a better job. They also, I think they acquired WP Scan as a service, which is also having like a database of known vulnerabilities, and can then like raise those issues with the plugins and so on. There are other services like Patch Stack, which is also like advanced security for those who care about simplicity, security, and performance, they say on their website. I just like went to their website. So there are good services to take care of this, but I also just to be sure, like that if things go wrong, that you were on the rather safe side of things. I also like to think very well of what kind of data you even save on your website. Like we try to prevent saving personal data, private data in the WordPress website, just for security reason, right? Because it's not because we don't trust the system. It's just like no one knows if anything goes wrong for any reason at some point. It's just better if your website was hacked and you know that that attacker had no access to any personal data, to any private data of customers, and you did not lose any data or something like that as well. But even that worst case, then you could just say, okay, great, we just restore backup from yesterday, clean slate, that's it, we're done. And the way we achieve that usually is by trying to save personal data to other services, right? Like having a read-only access to a CRM where the form posts to and stuff like that. Similar with other customer data, or getting data from other services onto the website that we then also read data from an API which only exposes non-critical data and so on. Like kind of communicate with external services whenever it is about private data and stuff like that with minimal access. So hardly anything can go wrong, and only things can be accessed from those APIs which are publicly available anyways.
Yeah. So most clients that we work for already have some sort of CRM, right? So, and then the mistake that we could make is to actually, when we have forms that are being submitted, that we save them in the WordPress database and then send them via an API to the CRM. But in our like our best practice is to just like post things there like immediately and don't save them for any reason in our own database. Of course, this doesn't work for shops, for web shops, stores. So whenever you have like a WooCommerce, I mean, it does work, right? You can have like shopping cart alternatives that also completely handle all the personal data from your customers, and you just need to have like a login flow that will expose this data to your server or to the client directly. So yeah, we always try to or tend to prefer these kind of services, because again, we are very specialized in what we do, and I think like we want everyone else who is involved also to be specialized in what they do. And yeah, I think this is a great path to success, to security, and yeah, to great websites and great user experiences.
Yes.
So yeah, one thing that we haven't talked so far about that much, but this is also because we don't use these things or these solutions a lot, but there are like tons and tons of security plugins for WordPress, right? And a lot of them started as like as a one-man show kind of, where developers try to make their website more secure, and it seems like most of them are just like upselling things and want to solve everything, and also like offer 1,000 extra services and so on. So yeah, as we said before, like we have covered most of the things that we do to secure websites, and sometimes it is necessary to install a web application firewall as a WordPress plugin if you don't have any other ways to secure that. And yeah, try always to look at like recommended things that don't seem to be offering too much, right? So maybe like I can mention this one plugin because I think it's like really on point, and while it does have a paid option now, it's really it offers a lot in the free version already. And this is the Ninja web application firewall, or Ninja firewall it is called. And yeah, there you have like but again, you have to know what you are doing, and you have to configure it in a certain way to see like what kind of attacks or what kind of problems do we have, and because sometimes yeah, it differs completely from website to website, right? What kind of like malicious traffic a site can have, and there are these kind of things, and then also like securing forms in order to prevent spam, which is not necessarily hacking, but it actually goes into the same direction, right? So using a captcha, reCAPTCHA, honeypots, all these kind of things is always a good, or can be a good idea if you have problems with the initial setup.
And handling that form data well, right? Not just like saving it somehow somewhere for it to be executed in the backend and have like a cross-site scripting attack or something like that. But that, again, when you just save that or don't save that and just send it to a CRM, then it's like, okay, that's fine. Not our job here. That's also just like makes it easier. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, WordPress does have this tool called Site Health within the WordPress default installation, right? And that also gives you some tips about, hey, by the way, you should have automatic updates activated. You should remove inactive plugins. You should do this and that, and does a little general security check. So they are well aware and really working on that and like upping their game a lot, like in the past years, to help people just do a better job at maintaining their site and their security. And last but not least, talking about security and plugins, you should consider installing VRTs, of course, the visual regression tests. It's not a security plugin, but it helps you detect any unexpected things. And especially if there would be a random hack in terms of text being modified in the database. That's what they try to do many times. They try to insert some spammy text into your blog posts. And this can sometimes not be spotted because like how are you going to be aware of that? And then at some point, in worst case scenario, Google will let you know that you have spam on your website and they de-index you. And then like, what, why? And then you notice that in your site title there is some Chinese characters and weird stuff and so on, and redirecting to porn sites. And it's like, how did that happen? I've seen these things happen like years and years ago. That's what just like I'm talking about that. And with a plugin like VRGs, you will very likely get notified about this because you're watching a page, you're taking screenshots, or the website plugin takes screenshots every single day. And if there's some content that changed, that was not changed via the WordPress backend, it will cause an alert. And you know, latest 1 day later. And that's so much better than knowing about this like 6 weeks later.
Yeah. Right.
Go check out the plugin and subscribe to our channel, and bye-bye.
Bye.